First of all, sorry for the spam. I know this is the second video I've made in an entire month, so I'll try and calm that down. It's something of a trend within the extremely niche Korean-speaking foreigner YouTuber community to do a video where native English speakers will attempt to complete questions from the Korean College Entrance English Exam, or the CSAT. And yet, I've never done this. How good, really, am I at English? We need to find it out. So, today, I'm going to go to one of the libraries here at the university in Bristol, sit the whole test, the whole thing, listening part, reading part, all of that, and then I'll come back and discuss my thoughts on it. So yeah, let's go. If you're wondering why I'm wearing headphones throughout the whole thing, instead of just for the listening section, I'm probably listening to one of my fantastic studying playlists, which you can find on my Spotify page. The link is in the description. Yes, well, anyway, that's enough shameless self-promotion. Let's get on with the video. So, I just did the test, and I have some thoughts. First things first, what result did I get? I actually asked a couple of my friends what result they thought I would get. One of them predicted me an A, another one predicted me an F, so not much confidence in my English abilities there. So this is the 2019 English Sunning that I just completed, just got back, just marked it. My entire total result was 65 out of 100. I'm curious as to what that is in Korean mark schemes. 65% score would put me just at a D+. I should clarify one thing. Not all of my mistakes were due to English mistakes. About 10 of my lost marks came from in the listening section, just not understanding the questions. The Korean they used, a lot of it I didn't recognise. So there's a few things I want to talk about right now. Ow, like about how uncomfortable my jeans are, Jesus Lord. I don't want to be too harsh on this test, okay? It's got an awful reputation. I don't want to misrepresent how difficult this test actually is. This test isn't really showing that the Sunning's bad, it's just showing that I'm bad at Korean. Which we all knew, I feel like. Oh, okay, interesting. This is the first place where I think me and the writers of the Sunning, we disagree. I'm just going to read it out to you, just so you get a flavour of what I was dealing with. Anyone who sat this test this year will have known exactly how difficult it was, but this is question 29 in the reading section. Monumental is a word that comes very close to expressing the basic characteristic of Egyptian art. Never before and never since has the quality of monumentality been achieved as fully as it did in Egypt. The reason for this is not the external size of massiveness of their work, so I'd already got it wrong by this point. Key thing in this question is you have to pick the weird word or the wrong use of the word. Now in this case, you've probably heard it already if you're a native English speaker. It's in the sentence never before and never since has the quality of monumentality been achieved as fully as it did in Egypt. Now, the correct sentence is of course achieved as fully as it was in Egypt. We're going to note this one down for later. I made a list of questions I thought were properly nasty or felt very incorrect to me. Oh my god. Ugh. Question 33. We'll talk about the content and language used in these questions because my god is it boring. It is some of the most dense stuff I feel like I've read in ages. So there are a few things about this test which strike me as strange and not altogether helpful, especially for people who are planning to either go to university, live, or work in a native English speaking country. The first thing I want to say is that by and large, the listening section was fine. It was completely normal. It sounded like a normal language test. Obviously, there are going to be some weird things like people act differently, but that's the same thing. For example, when I was learning French in school, you get weird conversations. That's fine. There's no problem there. That's all normal. You get these quite strange language shifts or tone shifts. So, for example, in one of these questions, there's an announcement over like a speaker system to a stadium. Today's baseball game was supposed to begin in 20 minutes. That's a tiny bit more colloquial than you would expect to hear in, say, an announcement where you would probably hear something like, oh, the game that was scheduled for 20 minutes from now has been cancelled, or something like that. However, I don't really hold this against the Sunning because it's a test, you've only got so many questions, you have to get in a lot of types of English. That's fine, I don't mind about that. Then we got to the writing section, and my goodness. Allow me to read a short extract from the third question of the reading section. So third, sort of warming up, maybe getting a bit more difficult. Yeah, here it is. War is inconceivable without some image or concept of the enemy. It is the presence of the enemy that gives meaning and justification to war. War has its own strategic, tactical, and other rules of points of view, but they all presuppose that the political decision has already been made as to who the enemy is. The concept of the enemy is fundamental to the moral assessment of war. The basic aim of a nation at war in establishing an image of the enemy is to distinguish as sharply as possible the act of killing from the act of murder. Okay, right, fine. F***ing hell. The level of English that is being assessed here is miles above what an average English speaker will encounter in their day-to-day life. Which is why when you watch videos of English people doing the Sunning, they are making these faces of just disbelief and shock at the sheer volume of language that is coming at them. Apart from the fact that Carl Schmitt was a Nazi, there's no problem with that point. I'm just going to go through this reading section and point out things that were really weird to me. The cultural and contingent phenomena that they are. I don't know what the word contingent means. I certainly don't know what it means in this context. I've heard the word, I know what a contingency is. Cultural and contingent phenomenon. It could mean parallel. I'm not entirely sure though. So yeah, that had me weirded out a lot. Big discoveries are covered in the press, show up on the university's homepage, help get grants, and make the case for promotions. But it's wrong. That "but it's wrong" in the centre is wrong. It sounds incredibly unnatural. I can't really explain why, I just know that in English we would never say that. You would say, but this is the wrong way of doing things, or there needs to be some kind of more specificity in that sentence. It doesn't really work. Now we get into the questions that I feel are really not good. Not good and not helpful. Question 22 is one of the worst things I've read. So I've read this perhaps 5-6 different times. I still can't tell you what it's actually talking about. So there's a phrase in English, colloquial English, whereas if you want to criticise the words someone's choosing to use, you would say that they sound like they've swallowed a thesaurus. You mean they are using the fanciest possible words at every possible opportunity just to make themselves sound smart. And I would say that this question has a severe case of swallowing thesauruses. There are some very choice words written down in my notebook here for this question. With question 33 and question 29, these ones where there's so much jargon, I'm spending so much time trying to understand the long, complex words that are being used that I don't understand the point the essay is actually making. The level of the language is so high compared to where it reasonably needs to be. You don't need to understand the terminology used to describe the Impressionist movement or the brainstem chemistry. And I don't understand why the Korean Department of Education or whatever thinks that all students have to have this level of English command. I hope what my result in this test shows people is that being good at the English CSAT and being good at English are completely different things. Let's say half the marks I lost were because of not understanding Korean. That puts me about 80%. That's a good B, I think. And I'm a native English speaker. It's the first language, it's the only language I'm fluent in. This test doesn't really represent conversational English ability. And I'm worried that out of the thousands and thousands of people who do this test every year, whatever mark they get, they're going to think to speak English well, you have to be able to smash this test. And I'm telling you that's not the case. This test tests a very specific subset of academic use English, and it doesn't even completely represent that in my opinion. So you could justify the high level of difficulty in this test by saying, oh, well, if a student wants to go to university and study something like geography or economics, they're going to need to understand English at this level. And that is true, I think, to an extent. But university is not just about academics. It's also about meeting new people, talking to them, socializing to an extent. And if you spend all your time practicing this incredibly high jargon, high density type of language, you're going to be at such a disadvantage when it comes to just regular conversation between two people. I think it's more important just based on the massive societal pressure and importance placed on this test on Korean teens. When you hear about the kind of personal sacrifice that have to be made for this test, I think it's important that you make sure that what's being taught is worthwhile. So yeah, those are my thoughts on it. Like, at the end of the day, these tests are written by people with vastly more experience and qualifications than my own. So this is just me giving a quick reaction to what my thoughts were while I was doing this test. So I've spent this many minutes talking about Sunna and complaining that, it doesn't prepare you well enough to go to university in England and all this stuff. But I know that a lot of people who watch my videos might want to go to university in England. So what's to be done? I wouldn't want to leave you with a depressing conclusion. So I'm happy to say that this video is sponsored by JSB College. JSB College runs something called the UFP, or University Foundation Program. The UFP is a 3-term course that is aimed to prepare Korean students specifically for UK universities. So yeah, they have 5 different sort of routes you can take depending on what university course you want to do. You get help with your English, you get help with the process of applying to university. And yeah, if you're thinking of applying to a UK university and you're looking for a way to improve your English or just put yourself in a better position, or make yourself more attractive to UK universities, I think this could be a really good course for you guys. And I know that for me personally, applying to university was a very stressful process, so I can't even imagine doing it for a country all the way on the other side of the world. So I hope you guys take a look. There's lots more information. There's a link to their website in the description. Filming Luke forgot to mention this, but if you let them know that you came from me when you enroll, you actually get a free university consultation about your options. Yeah, I've actually spoken to one of the professors there, and it really freaked me out because there was a Korean fellow and then he spoke to me and he sounds more English than I do. So yeah, applications for that course end in August. So please do click the link in the description and have a look. I think it looks really good. And yeah, I think that's just about all I wanted to talk about. This is probably the longest talking video I've done in a while, so I hope it wasn't too boring for everyone. Thank you very much for watching, as always. I hope everyone's having a good month. Yeah. Also, if you haven't already, plug, follow me on Instagram. I post Instagram stories reasonably often, so it sort of gives you a snapshot of what's going on in my day. Let me know what you'd like to see about my life here at Bristol University. And yeah, see you next time.